Hi, everyone. It's Kristen Hawkins with Students for Life Action. I'm so excited. This is our very first national squad training. We're going to be coming to you live every month, training the Students for Life Action squad members. So if you've signed up for the Students for Life Action team, our emails, or maybe have done our, contact your legislator activities, you are in our squad, which is really exciting because there's a lot of opportunities coming up for you and how you can be involved politically in elections, but then also influencing public policy. As we all know in the pro-life movement, this issue that we fight every day on is not a political issue. It's a human rights issue, but we do know politics is one place we need to engage. And it's actually very important because laws literally will determine whether or not children will be saved from abortion, whether or not women will be lied to by the abortion industry. One statistic that was recently pointed out to me is that the federal Hyde Amendment, that amendment that bans taxpayer funding of abortion, right now you can't use taxpayer funds for abortion except in cases of rape, incest, or life of the mother. That Hyde Amendment saves over 50,000 lives. And so laws matter. Public policy matters. So thank you for joining us in this adventure of launching Students for Life Action. And thank you for joining us tonight for this squad training. Okay, so for the first training, we have a good friend, Janae Strachey. Janae works at the Heritage Action for America. So many of you all know of the Heritage Foundation, but Heritage Action for America is Heritage Foundation's sister organization, and they are super active on Capitol Hill. Janae, you might see her at the press conferences that we hold or the pro-life movement's holding. She's always there on Capitol Hill, right in the thick of it. And we asked Janae to come on tonight to talk about Heritage Action's latest report. It's called Planned Parenthood Does Not Provide Health Care. I think they could have added the word duh after the end of it, because I feel like we have to have this conversation all the time. So I wanted Janae to come on tonight and really train us in what Planned Parenthood's business model really is, what is going on inside of Planned Parenthood. This is a question as a pro-life activist you're going to get a lot, whether you're door knocking, phone banking with the Vote Pro-Life First campaign, and I hope you all have signed up to be part of our call squad or door squad, just ivoteprolifefirst.com, or maybe you're on campus having a conversation about abortion, or you're at church talking to someone about the pro-life movement and they say, well, I don't like abortion, but Planned Parenthood, they do a lot of good. You need to be prepared and armed with the facts to counteract these myths, these falsehoods. So Janae, welcome to the National Squad Training. Thanks for being on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to join you guys. And so this is your first, is that right?
That's right.
I'm honored to be on with you guys. Thank you everyone for joining. I love what you guys do at Students for Life Action. And I've followed along with Students for Life for years now, and the work that you guys do, it's incredible. The movements that you guys are making on your campuses is amazing, and it's unmatched. So keep it up. Don't hold back. Madison said I work for Heritage Action for America, and she said is the sister organization to the Heritage Foundation. So for those of you that aren't familiar, the foundation is a C3 think tank. So they're writing white papers, research papers, and have analysts, experts in all different areas. We cover anything conservative. So we do similar work at Heritage Action to what you guys are doing as activists at Students for Life. So at Heritage Action, we are the lobbying arm to the foundation. So the research papers they're putting out, we have our own grassroots army, which we call Sentinels, and we activate them on issues ranging from taxes to life and everything in between. Every conservative issue you can imagine. So the paper we're discussing tonight is a research paper that my colleague Melanie Israel at the Heritage Foundation wrote, and it is full of incredible stats that are, on one hand, heartbreaking, but I think very important for all of us to know. I know you guys at Students for Life are always turning up to know these things off the top of your mind so that when someone asks you, you have an answer. So hopefully tonight will give you some more of those statistics.
That's awesome. So when you guys put together this report, you guys, I think, found a lot of things that we talk a lot about in the pro-life movement, that, Planned Parenthood doesn't really provide as much health care as they say they do. I mean, right now, I think during this COVID crisis, Jane, it's kind of a perfect example of what Planned Parenthood's all about. Here in Pennsylvania, where I live, Planned Parenthood's still open. Our governor is a proud abortion supporter. So they're allowed to be open, but they've stopped doing all services except abortion. So what were some of the key findings that you guys found out looking, about the services that Planned Parenthood provides that are supposed to be the reason why we continue to fund them?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first point you've kind of made here is a point that Planned Parenthood themselves has made several times, and that is that they are really more of a political organization than they are a health organization. Now, we in the pro-life movement have known that for years, but it's amazing how much Planned Parenthood themselves expose themselves. So they will, I think the first example of this that the paper starts talking about is their former president, Dr. Leanna Wen, and she was on board for less than a year after Cecile Richards stepped down, which Cecile Richards is, if you've been in the movement for a while, you know her name. She really grew their numbers, and I want to get into detail on some of those numbers. But I just want to first start by making this point that when Cecile Richards stepped down and they hired Dr. Wen, who was a doctor, she was actually an ER doctor, so she's a medical background, and she's not left even a single year Planned Parenthood. And as this was all playing out, what was publicly being stated was that there was a disagreement. She wanted to focus more on the medical side of things, and they wanted a politician. They wanted someone that knew how to play the political game. So they themselves have made it really clear that that's where their loyalty lies. That's what's important to them. And as we go through some of these numbers, I think it'll become more clear why that's so important to them, because of the money that's wrapped up into it. So I think that's just an important foundation for us to understand that they themselves have painted themselves as political, not a health organization. So some of the top line numbers that I would love to highlight here is their services numbers. And actually, I know Students for Life, man, it's probably been years now, but you guys yourselves put out an awesome video explaining the breakdown of numbers and the shell game that Planned Parenthood says. I remember you guys using cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets. So if you're watching this video and you haven't seen it, you should go look it up, because it's exactly what this is about. When you read through Planned Parenthood's report, they put out their numbers annually, and you look at the services that they're providing, they always play a game to make it look like they're doing more than they are when it comes to health services. So the numbers that we found is that they are doing fewer than 1/3 of the cancer screenings and prevention services that they were doing at the beginning of Cecile Richards' tenure. So when she started, it was 2006. She was with them for 12 years until 2018. So in 12 years, we're going to see a lot of abortion numbers go up and a lot of their other services down. There's a trend here. So they started doing fewer than 1/3 of their cancer screenings. Their contraceptions have gone down. The STDs and STI testings have gone up, which is, of course, not good. And their prenatal clients were shifted to prenatal services, which is exactly what the video I just referenced, the Students for Life video, talks about. That term there, they went from listing how many people came in their doors for prenatal care to listing how many services that came. That means that if I walked in Planned Parenthood's doors and needed prenatal care, they're not going to count me as one person. They're going to count me as 6 or 7, depending on how many things are done when I walk in their doors. So bottom line is that a lot of their medical care services have decreased over the last decade, while their abortion numbers have gone up. In 2018, that was when Cecile Richards stepped down, to the highest number of abortions reported, and it was over 345,000. Now, that was up from 289,000, just over 289,000 in 2006. So when you look at the numbers that you can see in the report that is put out, which I believe is in the comments on the Facebook page, so if you're watching along, you can read the report for yourself. But in Cecile Richards' very first 3 years, the number jumps the entire time. There's a little bit of zigzagging there in the middle, and there's a few explanations for that. But in her first 3 years, it jumped almost 40,000 just from Cecile Richards stepping on. I think another important statistic is the increase in chemical abortions, and we could have an entire conversation about this.
Yes. We did a webcast on it last night.
Good. Oh, great. Well, then everybody can access that and watch it later. But in 2016, the Obama administration's FDA loosened their regulations on mifepristone, which is the first stage in a chemical abortion, which basically like sucks the blood away from the baby. So that it's like a slow, painful death. I mean, imagine if you were just starved and you're just left to die. That's basically what's happening to this baby in a series of stages. So they lifted regulations on that in 2016, which is when we then saw the abortion numbers shoot up again, which again, as I said, in 2018 was their highest number of reported abortions, which is just under 350,000. So there's so many numbers here that we can go through and report. I think an interesting thing in the paper is it compares some of the CDC numbers with the Guttmacher Institute. And the CDC reports the number of abortions that Planned Parenthood does, but reporting abortion voluntary, not mandatory. And so states like California, they don't report them at all. So when you compare these numbers, Guttmacher's numbers are actually get more reporting numbers because they used to be an arm of Planned Parenthood. So they have access to more abortion clinics and have more numbers. So their numbers are a little bit lower, which makes it look like Planned Parenthood has less buy-in. But really their market share is over 50%. So Planned Parenthood alone, they're an abortion machine that owns the abortion industry, and they're making so much money off it.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think that's so interesting when you think about the taxpayer funding aspect, Janae, of, in 2000, I was looking at it. I think Live Action had taken a table that was someone had put in their blog. And what they had done was they'd taken federal taxpayer funding of Planned Parenthood year by year, starting in year 2000 even, and then the abortion numbers. And it was shocking to look at the taxpayer funds, then the abortion numbers, just side by side. 2000, I think the federal taxpayer funds were over 150 million. Their abortions were about 150,000. Then you have 2006. There's a big jump. Now, in 2020, what we believe their numbers will be around 350,000. If they get their way, it'll be more. And so there's a direct correlation with the more taxpayer funds they get, the more abortions they commit, which is actually the exact opposite of what a lot of your pro-choice friends and family will say. They'll say, well, we need to fund Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood reduces abortions. These entities, stop women. They educate them about sex, about their bodies. They give them access to contraception. And if you're so anti-abortion, you should support these organizations. But when you really look at the facts, you can directly see the relationship between increasing taxpayer funds to Planned Parenthood and their increasing number of abortions and their increase of market share. I mean, over almost 50%, what you just said, right? 50% of abortions are being committed by Planned Parenthood. The other interesting thing you were talking about, a lot of their services going down. If you, I didn't realize this. It kind of was brought to my attention a couple months ago. Planned Parenthood, they say, well, we're doing STD testing. They call it STI testing, sexually transmitted infections, because that's less scary than saying disease. But I'm sorry, if you contract HPV, if you contract a lot of things, genital warts, those are diseases that they're incurable, right? But they're kind of making this case that they're so needed, but yet they're not actually even treating. They treat less than 25% of all STDs that they test and discover. That's crazy.
Yep. Yeah, I think that the two big takeaways, whether you remember the exact numbers I say or whether you remember the exact numbers in the report, it's that and I actually don't think I said this, so it's important that I say it now. Nationwide, over the last, since early 2000s, abortions have actually decreased. But guess what? Whose abortions have increased? Planned Parenthood's. So while nationwide we are seeing a bit of a decrease in abortions, Planned Parenthood's continue to go up. Yeah. And as you said, their services decrease. So I think the big takeaway that we can all remember is that Planned Parenthood is doing less and less care for women and more abortion that's strictly lining their own pockets. That's really what it comes down to. People don't want abortions. Planned Parenthood has had a PR problem for a long time now. And I know we're going to talk about some of our pro-life wins later, but one of them was the exposure of Planned Parenthood. And they have been fighting since to their name. And, I think the more we talk about these statistics and who Planned Parenthood really is, the more we're going to see wins on the pro-life side, because you can't know what you know. You can't know the facts and still support Planned Parenthood. I mean, the fact that they spend millions and millions even on political races, it's really just so that they can keep themselves going.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think we did a tour in 2016 during the election, the fall tour, and we were trying to figure out, how do we talk about this in a C3 friendly way? This was Students for Life of America on campuses. And how do we talk about the election and what's going on? And we called it the cycle of corruption tour, because, that's really what it is. The more you elect these pro-abortion politicians, the more taxpayer dollars that flows into Planned Parenthood, and then the more money they then in return flow into your elections. It's a corrupt cycle that continues and continues and continues. And regardless of how you feel about abortion, you should be dismayed by this. You should be upset that this is a cycle of corruption that's happening in Washington, D.C., and that your taxpayer dollars are a part of this. In fact, it's actually one of our winning messages that we have found to convert young people who may not be with us on the issue of abortion, but definitely don't like the Planned Parenthood business model. They see it, and really what you were saying about how Planned Parenthood increased their share of the market of the abortion industry. There's actually a fundraiser, I think it is today or tomorrow, that one of the crazy abortion funds, like super extremist groups, there's like two B-list actresses doing it. It's a telethon, and they're raising money for only independent abortion facilities, because that's been the argument from the independent mom and pop shops for years. Planned Parenthood gets taxpayer funds. They can, use those funds for their parking lot, for, their beds, their materials. They can't use them for abortions, but they use it to offset everything else they do, so they can provide abortions at cheaper cost than an independent abortion facility. It's like Walmart compared to a local hardware store or a local grocery store. And these independent abortion facilities, that's why they're going out of business. That's why Planned Parenthood continues to increase their share of the market. So they were doing a fundraiser today. These very pro-abortion, not pro-choice, pro-abortion activists for independent abortion facilities to keep them alive, which is ironic in itself.
Yeah, again, it's a PR battle. I think at the end of the day, they always want to help themselves, and it was hurting them that they wanted to say, oh, no, but women need us. They need us. But the fact of the matter was that there are more federally qualified health clinics across this county or across the country than there are Planned Parenthoods. It's like
Right.
13 to 1. 13 to 1. I mean, we don't need Planned Parenthood is bottom line. And the more people figure that out, the more they realize, oh, instead of driving 100 miles this way to get to Planned Parenthood, I can go to this federally qualified health clinic in my community. Great. We don't need Planned Parenthood. We don't need them to have taxpayer dollars. So I really believe that everything they do can be traced back to money and trying to help themselves. And, you know, they've had all sorts of campaigns to try to do this. They started the Celebrate, or I think they said Shout Your Abortion was a campaign they ran for a long time, where they asked women to get on and celebrate their abortion and to be proud of it. And, you know, that's what I was saying earlier, that they're so out of touch that even, you know, you're talking about you've confronted necessarily with you and being pro-life. They may be pro-abortion, but they don't like Planned Parenthood's model. That's because of stuff like this. Women don't want an abortion. It's not a celebration. And the fact that Planned Parenthood is putting women in that position, I mean, they're using them as pawns. They're using their hurt and their brokenness, and they feel trapped. And so, you know, you see almost every move they make, you can see them using women to line their own pockets.
It's terrible. Before we get into our kind of next question I have for you, Janae, if you all are watching and have questions for us, I'm going to be asking Janae some questions towards the end of this Facebook Live training session for our squad members. So make sure you just put your questions in the comments down below. I believe some links are also being shared down there, so you'll want to check that out. So Janae, I guess you see the Heritage Report, you know, Live Action, Students for Life, SBA list, that we've all been talking about Planned Parenthood and the evil nature of Planned Parenthood, that it's really only about one thing, and that's abortion only. I think that lends itself to like the very simple question is, why the heck haven't they been defunded then? How is it that they're still getting federal funds? What's going on in DC?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a tricky question, but I think what is important for us to understand is that they're getting funds in two primary ways, or we're getting funds in two primary ways. And that one of them was Title X, and the other one is Medicaid. And while we weren't able to do much through Congress, and we can talk about some other pro-life bills that we haven't been able to get through, which is very frustrating, through President Trump's administration, we have been able to defund Planned Parenthood's $60 million that was coming through Title X. So that was one way. And I remember back in 2010 when Richards was testifying, and there was an exchange with her and a representative that would, you know, they were really hammering her. I was sitting in the hearing room that day, and it was a day I'll never forget. They're really hammering her on some of their reporting and numbers. And this particular representative continued to ask her and said, would you not have been able to service the women you did last year without this $60 million? Could you have still done everything you did without this $60 million? And she wouldn't answer the question because, of course, the answer is yes. I mean, they're a multi-billion-dollar organization.
That's over $100 million in profit a year.
Yes, they have excess revenue, net assets, tons and tons of money. And on top of the federal dollars they're getting billions of dollars from celebrities, individual contributions, which I believe their individual contributions have actually gone down, but they're still getting
400,000 donors.
400,000 donors. That's because of work like all of our viewers are doing. The more we talk about who Planned Parenthood really is, those are the people that have stopped donating. But who has continued giving? Celebrities that think they know what's best, and they think their abortions have saved their careers, and they're going to give their millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood. Well, you know what? If they want to give their millions of dollars to Planned Parenthood and fund the death that comes out of the organization, let them do that. But my tax dollars should not. So to get back to your original question, we have We have defunded Planned Parenthood through Title X, which is amazing. They actually, again, made it clear that they were only about abortion because President Trump basically publicly said, okay, you can still have these funds if you want. You can't use it for abortion. No abortion. And they were like, no, sorry. I guess that $60 million wasn't that important to them. So they passed on that.
They defunded themselves.
They defunded themselves, exactly, because all they care about is abortion. Mm-hmm. The other part of it, Medicaid, is very tricky because a lot of that money is wrapped up in the states. That's right. So the work does need to be done at the state and local level as well. And we've seen a lot of pro-life wins in the state and local levels as well. You guys probably know a lot about that as well. And getting local pro-life legislation passed is going to become increasingly important in the coming years, especially as we see the courts shift. So it is a really tricky thing to completely defund Planned Parenthood, but I do believe that it's possible, and we need to keep working towards it. We've a lot of gains, which is really exciting. We've got more work to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the $60 million that they've lost because they've chosen abortion above all, I think just shows you their priorities. It's not everything we need. Obviously, they got over $600 million from taxpayers last year. But this is why elections matter. We're going to be talking a lot about this, and I know Heritage Action for America is going to be talking a lot about this. This is why voting matters. I often hear, from pro-lifers, a lot of folks who, are just kind of dissuaded by politics saying, oh, we elected these people, they made these promises, then they betrayed us. And I'm the first one to call out a lot of these folks for getting to Washington, D.C., then suddenly forgetting who got them there. But we could defund Planned Parenthood. In fact, when the Republicans held the Congress, U.S. House of Representatives last time, they voted 3 times to federally defund Planned Parenthood. But at the time, we couldn't do anything because we had a pro-abortion president. We had a Senate that was majority pro-abortion. Now it's kind of flipped. We have a pro-life president, a pro-life U.S. Senate, but not a pro-life House. And so you really, in order to do this, you're going to need a trifecta. You're going to need a pro-life trifecta in the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the presidency. And so there's so much that the president can do, but there are limits, even sometimes to his own dismay. So you've got to really think about why your vote matters and why it's important for you all to get out and vote. I hope, as I said earlier, I hope so many of you squad members have already signed up to join our I Vote Pro-Life First campaign. You can go to ivoteprolifefirst.com, sign up to join our Call Squad or Door Squad. We're partnering with Susan B. Anthony List and Catholic Vote to make calls, talk to voters, talk to your neighbors about why the election matters. All right, we have questions, Janae. So I want to get to some of these questions. Some of them are kind of hard, okay? So Planned Parenthood is a criminal organization. Why hasn't more been done to hold them accountable by the Department of Justice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a question I think a lot of us are asking. And there was a formal FBI investigation that was launched. And so we did see some work in that area. But I think the frustration that a lot of us feel comes down to bureaucracy and red tape and politics, and those are all things that we need to fix, but we do that through holding people accountable and making noise.
That's right. And there was the House Select Committee that was formed after David Daleiden, the Center for Medical Progress's research and undercover work came out showing that Planned Parenthood was openly trafficking the body parts of broken babies they've aborted. There was a letter sent to DOJ. There was a DOJ investigation. There was an FBI investigation. But then there was absolute radio silence. And there were letters. Senator Grassley from Iowa sent many letters to President Obama's Attorney General, and it just stalled. And there was a change in administration, and then there were Obama holdouts who still work at the Department of Justice. So this is why it matters that you keep the pressure on when you're talking to your senators, when you're talking to your House of Representatives member. Bring this up. Say, this is what we've been saying. Where is the DOJ investigation? Where's the final results from the DOJ investigation? It has been absolute radio silence. And Americans deserve to know what the answer is there. All right. So, Janae, how about this one. What percentage of Planned Parenthood's revenue is from abortion?
Yeah, I know I'd had that number here somewhere. We know that 97% of what they do is abortion. So a large portion of their money is coming in from that. I mean, it's what they are, like everything.
I believe it's over like 40. Is it like 40% or is it 30%? It's difficult to because they're getting so much money from taxpayers, which can't technically be can't be used for abortions. But we also know they're overcharging for contraception. So they're getting, like, in some reports they say that they can get contraception for like less than $3 for a month's supply, but then they bill $28. So there's been all kinds of interesting reports of how they're doing that.
Right. And what I was going to say, it's a shell game for them. So, and we talked about this a bit.
Oh, it's over half. Okay, sorry. The number I have, over half of their non-government revenue comes from abortion.
Their non-government funding. Okay. So when they do get government funding, Kristen, you talked at the beginning about the Hyde Amendment, which says that federal dollars cannot be used for abortion, which is great. It has saved lives. But we also know that for groups like Planned Parenthood, this is a shell game. If they're getting our tax dollars, that means they can put their money elsewhere. So all these celebrities that are donating to them money that they're making elsewhere, other revenue, that can be put towards abortion. So if my mom gave me $50 and said, Janae, you have to use this for gas, you can't buy a new shirt, or I don't know what the case may be. Okay, great. I'll use her $50 for gas and I'll use my $50 for a new shirt. I mean, it's just a shell game. So
yep, that's right. That's our burgers and fries video we made, I think. Or then we did one about rent too, if someone gives you money for rent. All right, so here's a question, and this kind of talks about the grassroots activism level. What can we do at the local level to stop the abortion industry? In several Michigan counties, the counties have kicked Planned Parenthood out. In one county, we found out they were subsidizing Planned Parenthood by allowing them to operate for $1 a month inside their public health building. And then the pro-life commissioners got them booted.
That's awesome.
I think you just answered your own question.
This sounds like they've already done the right thing.
That's exactly right. This is why local elections matter, why you need pro-life commissioners, why you need pro-life folks on the zoning board. If a Planned Parenthood's trying to build a facility, they're going to have to go get a building permit and a zoning permit. You need pro-lifers at every level looking for where the abortion industry, the school board. The school board is huge. What kind of sex ed curriculum is being presented?
Yeah, I mean, at any level, honestly, any issue you're working on, local politics matter just as much as federal. And it starts with your school board. It really does. That's where, education in the school, that's where people are growing up with this mindset and what they're taught. So it really does start local. And honestly, you might have more luck at the local level even than the federal level because you can make more noise. I mean, local papers are often looking for things to publish. And I know a lot of our media is very liberal, and that includes our local papers. So it might depend on where you're at and what the issue is. But when you can make noise, I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So the more we talk about this, the more attention it's going to get. It's not always easy, but I mean, like you said, they are already successful in Michigan. So if you, vote in pro-life people and continue to talk about this issue with friends and family, educate, get the stats and statistics out there, and then be involved in your local politics, federal politics, write letters to the editor, make phone calls, tweet at them. It all makes a difference.
That's so important. It's so important. I think sometimes folks kind of get enamored with what's happening in Washington, D.C., and the focus gets on Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. is so important, but then it's the local level. And at Students for Life, we even saw a lot of progress this year when squad members in their states got involved and stood up and said, we're going to stop the building of this Planned Parenthood. We're not going to let them come into our community. In Kansas City, Students for Life leaders have been going to all the city council meetings, collecting petitions, doing letters to editor. In Port St. Lucie, Florida, we've been doing the same thing. In Alabama, the group there, I think they convinced one of the vendors, the contractors, to actually pull out of the building process once they were what was explained what they were going to be building, that they're going to be building an abortion facility. And so you can slow down Planned Parenthood. You can stop Planned Parenthood. You can put them out of business. And but it takes you getting involved in the local level and start paying attention to, what is going on. All right, last question, Janae, and then we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to try to give everyone the reminders of how to sign up for the Vote Pro Life First campaign and continue to be a Students for Life Action Squad member, and how you can sign up if you haven't done so. All right, last question. Someone just asked about racism. What more can we do to expose Planned Parenthood's racist history?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I don't know how much you guys have talked about this in some of your other issues, but racism is woven into the fabric of who Planned Parenthood is. Their founder, Margaret Sanger, was a eugenicist and racist, and she believed that abortion would be population control and race control. So she was going to eliminate the race that she didn't like, which was Black people. So that was their founding. But in more recent times, there have been exposures of them. Like I said, they've been on a PR battle for a while now. And one of them is that we have recorded phone calls of people dialing in and saying, hey, I'd like to make a donation, but I want this money only to go to minority communities. I only want it to go to aborting Black babies. And they're like, okay, yeah, no problem. Sure. Crazy. We've got statistics like New York State. Now, I already said reporting abortion numbers is voluntary. So they're not always completely accurate. But in the state of New York, I believe, this has been a few years now, but in the state of New York, more Black babies were aborted than born. Mm-hmm. So, there's all sorts of statistics like that. The amount of Planned Parenthoods that are in minority communities, that they're specifically targeting minority communities, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Again, they could push more abortion, and it becomes this like cyclical issue that they're really preying on communities that are lacking solid support and solid family structures, probably feeling financial stress and whatever the case may be. And so they swoop in on these vulnerable communities and lie to them and say, hey, this is going to help you, all under the guise of making money and pushing abortion. And as Margaret Sanger would be so pleased, her initial goal of eliminating the Black population. So there's a lot of statistics like that out there that just, it really is in their fabric, and they can't help but let it seep out when you really start looking for it.
It's absolutely disgusting. I think I would say kind of my advice, we talk a little bit about Planned Parenthood's racist beginnings. I get asked about a lot, but we don't lead with it. And I would say if you're having a conversation, especially with a pro-choice person, someone who's not with you, it almost sounds unbelievable when you say it, right? It's just like when you're telling someone the truth about abortion for the first time. It's so horrible. It's shocking to them that this is actually going on. And so I think that's something I would be cautious of as an activist, not kind of leading with this issue, because it seems almost like a conspiracy theory that we know it's true. It's absolutely true. But it sounds so terrible, and people have such a good, sadly, positive perception of Planned Parenthood. It sounds just outlandish. I think it's one of those things where it kind of, you got to get them in the door first. You got to get them questioning Planned Parenthood's business model. It's just like when we're trying to convert on campuses. When we're talking about Planned Parenthood and I'm trying to convert a pro-choice person, I'm not even talking about abortion. I'm just talking about the fact that there's, 8,000 federally qualified health centers that provide way more services than Planned Parenthood at a lower cost, that they are, legally obligated, if they don't provide a service you need, to give you and help you with transportation to another facility. That if you really are a woman in crisis, in need, who needs health care, or a low income, just a low income family, your best bet is to go to a federally qualified health center. Just that argument alone converts so many people to say, yeah, maybe Planned Parenthood should be defunded. And I haven't even had to talk about why they're evil for committing abortions. I can convince them to be against Planned Parenthood just by saying, hey, look at the facts, that there's better quality health care at a lower cost available to you at way more facilities. So I would just remember, when you're talking about Planned Parenthood, know your audience and kind of know where you're starting at. So just a little bit of tips.
I just want to echo off that, Kristen, because I think that's an excellent point. I've actually had similar conversations with friends recently about a myriad of issues, really. But when you're trying to persuade someone, if you're talking to someone that disagrees with you, being right isn't enough. It's not the goal. If you just walk up to someone and in more words or less say, I'm right, you're wrong, they're automatically going to go on defense. If somebody comes up to me and I completely disagree with them and they're like, well, you're wrong and here's why, I'm immediately on defense. And I'm not just going to be like, oh, wow, thank you. You're right. I am right. Thank you. No, I'm thinking like, am I wrong? No, I don't think so. And I'm put on defense. But when you're talking to someone that you know and trust and have proven themselves of like, oh, wow, okay, they actually care about me. And I've seen them be right about this and are willing to have, a civil back and forth with me. Suddenly I can have tougher conversations with people that I disagree with. And that's the opportunity to persuade people, is when you put in the time to have a conversation with them and earn a little trust, as you said, Kristen, without starting out of the gate with something that seems so outrageous.
Yeah. It's all about, for us, it's all about how many people we can change their minds and their hearts. And so we always are looking at what's the most effective way to do that. Even if it's something, and I think we have to think about too, and I kind of lecture myself when I say this, just because an argument might have worked with us, or a slogan really appealed to us and got us activated, doesn't mean it's going to necessarily work with them. And a lot of times if you're talking with someone who is an abortion supporter, they may have an entirely different worldview than you do. And they're not even, may not even be starting with a Christian worldview, that we were created in the image of someone, by someone, for someone, right? And that becomes a very different conversation when you're talking about the value of the person and why we fight so hard against abortion. So I just think, just know your audience and understand that when you're talking about abortion, your objective is to change their mind, is to move their heart, and it may not be the same way that your mind was changed. You may have to have a different approach. So, well, thanks so much, Janae, for coming on tonight. It was really great to have this conversation with you and to kind of highlight your all's work at Heritage Action for America. I hope everyone will check out Heritage Action for America. You can follow them on Facebook. You can become a Sentinel, and you'll have a lot of connections with Janae. Hopefully, we'll be able to partner. The squad members for Students Life Action can partner with the Sentinels in some upcoming maybe lobby days on Capitol Hill when there's no more coronavirus quarantines.
Yes.
But thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you for putting together this report and kind of continuing to kind of hit this drumbeat on Capitol Hill, because we need everyone talking about why Planned Parenthood should be defunded. I'll tell you one thing: if we are victorious in the 2020 election, the next day it's all going to be about defunding Planned Parenthood for Students for Life, Students for Life Action.
I love hearing that. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed this.
Thank you. And okay, just a reminder to you all, if you are not signed up to be a Students for Life Action Squad member, so Students for Life Action is the sister organization of Students for Life of America. It's our public policy, political advocacy arm. Make sure you go to studentsforlifeaction.org, sign up, just put your email in. You'll become a squad member. You'll get all the access to the trainings, the replays. We do monthly squad trainings. We have a lot of opportunities. We're going to have lobby trips, paid lobby trips to Washington, D.C., to state capitals coming up, to the most dedicated and active squad members. So that's why we, if you're tuning in and we ask you to RSVP and you're like, why am I RSVPing for a Facebook page? It's because I want to make sure I'm counting your participation today in this training. Also go to ivoteprolifefirst.com, sign up for a call squad or a door squad. We are actually making phone calls tonight in the state of Arizona for the November election. We've got prizes. We've got a partnership with the Susan B. Anthony list where they've been talking about where they're actually going to be paying folks to go door to door, and you can be a part of that as a door squad member. So thank you all for your time tonight, and I'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.